and welcome back to my channel. Now, today I've decided to take part in something that a lot of other sewing YouTubers around the UK have started to do. Now, it's actually called, let me have a look, it's actually called the Seamstress Tag. So I suppose the first thing for me is that although it is going to be the Seamstress Tag, I'm not really sure what you call a guy who sews, but I don't think we're called seamstresses. Maybe a seamster. I'm not too sure, but I think it's a seamster. So the questions will still be exactly the same, but I wouldn't call myself a seamstress. Now, I must admit, this tag itself was started by a girl called Holly Sews on YouTube, and I'll link her channel down below. I actually found it on Rosa's channel Sewn and on a channel called Sew Over It, and those are the two channels I did see it on. But as I said, Holly was the original apparently. She was the person that introduced this, and I really do think it's a great opportunity for other people to sort of get to know a little bit about the sewing YouTube community and about why it is that we do this crazy thing, you know, and make things on camera and show people tutorials and speak about the things that we want to make. So here goes. I must have to apologise, I do still have a cold and it is absolutely doing my head in. You know, when you start to clean, and I have a really bad nose when it comes to dust, and if there's a lot of dust in the room, then if there's a lot of dust in the room, then my nose really does start to play up, so you just have to bear with me. Okay, so question number 1. Who are you? So my name is Josh Jamie Barnett, and my channel is ThatGuySews. Question number 2. When and why did you start sewing? For me, this is a story that I actually do quite like to talk about. I started sewing around about 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago, and I don't know, the reason I started sewing I think was because I was so fed up of, especially being a guy, and you know, fashion being a lot more limited than it is for women. I'd find myself wearing the same clothes or just very similar pieces to other people, and I think it was starting to do my head in. So I thought, you know what, I've had enough of this. I was in the summer holiday between my 2nd and 3rd year of university, and I found a sewing machine at my parents' house. And I'm very fast paced, I like things to move quickly, and I assumed that it's something that I'd move on from really quickly. But funnily enough, I didn't. I absolutely fell in love with it, and fell in love with the whole construction side of sewing. So when I first started, it was just like pocket t-shirts and things like that. But actually I fell in love with the manufacturing side of being able to design and create things. And so that's why I actually started sewing, and here I am 3 years later. Now, okay, what is your favourite or proudest make? Sorry, I jumped the question there. So question number 3, what is your favourite or most proudest make? Now, for me, it's certainly not the most complex thing I've ever made, but for me the proudest thing I've ever made is actually on the Great British Sewing Bee in week 3, lingerie week, when I had to make a sort of smoker's jacket. So for me that was amazing. I'd never made anything like that before, so I was kind of up against it. I felt like I was going home, and I knew it was a really tough challenge for me, but I just pushed through and chose quite sort of bold, feminine patterns for a guy in terms of my fabric choice, and it really did come off well, and I was just so happy with that, and the way the fabrics worked and the way that they actually looked on my model. So I think for me that was such a proud moment, knowing that, you know, my family and my friends were all watching this and supporting me. It really was sort of a great feeling for me. Now on to my most disastrous make. Funnily enough, it would be exactly the same week, so people get to see, you know, the best and the worst of you. So it's all well and good, you know, sitting in your sewing room and only ever showing people the creme de la creme, you know, the best stuff that you make. Whereas for me, I made something on the show which I was absolutely, looking back on it, it was just disgraceful. I don't even really know what it was. Again, it was in lingerie week. As you can imagine, I don't handle much with lingerie. I sleep in my underwear. I've never really had lingerie. I've never made any for my fiance. It's not really something that I'd ever got involved in, and I don't really know what it was called, but it was in the alteration challenge, and it was like it looked a little bit like a slip. My fabric choices were atrocious. I had to use 3 scarves to make this, and they just didn't work in the slightest, and I got absolutely terrorised, rightfully, by the judges for what I think is my most disastrous make. Number 5. Where is your favourite place to go fabric shopping? Now, I live in Cardiff in Wales, and if I'm brutally honest, it's not as good as I think you would assume or expect it to be, with it being the capital city of Wales. I expected a lot more. However, I do shop in a shop called Butterfly Fabrics on City Road. If anyone's in South Wales, you should check it out. It is really, really good shop, and they do have a hell of a lot on display. They did have a fire last year, but they are getting things back together. They didn't have a fire, there was a fire which consequently had an effect on their shop. But yeah, as I said, that's the only one that I really go to in and around Cardiff. If I go over the bridge to Bristol, I go to Fabricland, again just because of the extensity, sort of how much they actually have on offer, and I love to work with jersey and knits, and I find that at Fabricland they normally have a great selection for me. Now, in terms of online places, I like to shop at Minerva Craft. Just again, they've got a really extensive range of things to buy. So, and again, they've got a lot of patterns. I haven't bought from Sew Over It, but everybody seems to speak about that, so it's one that I think I'm going to check out. If you guys do know any, however, that you really do recommend that I check out, let me know in the comment section below, and I will check it out, because I'm always on the lookout for new places, because especially for me, I've not really been in the sewing community for very long, so I really do want to keep exploring and finding new places to find the best things for me to make. Now, what is your most used pattern? To be honest, I don't really and haven't really used patterns, so it would be kind of unfair for me to give a pattern that I use, because my most used patterns are ones that I've created myself, so like block t-shirts, long line t-shirts, jumpers, my bomber jacket pattern I created. I love using those, but they're not actually commercial patterns, they're just ones that I've self-drafted. So what I'm going to do is actually change the question a bit, just because I feel like I should answer it in some capacity. So what I want to do is actually ask again, is I'm looking specifically for a shirt pattern and for a pair of suit trousers, really nice ones, because I'm not sure if you know, I'm engaged. I got engaged last month, and we've now booked the venue and a date, but I think I'm going to have a go at making my own outfit. Now, in order for me to do that, I want to try and understand the process of making trousers and making shirts a lot more. So using a commercial pattern for that is essential in terms of the learning process. So let me know below if there are any shirts or trouser patterns that you guys really do recommend, because I will be keeping my lookout for some. What is your most dreaded sewing task is? Now, for me, this is absolutely, without a doubt, the thing that I hate doing the most is rethreading machines. Now, I'm very lucky. I have an overlocker, a cover stitch machine, and a sewing machine. However, an overlocker has 4 spools of cotton on it. My cover stitch machine has another 4, and my sewing machine obviously has 1. So that's a hell of a lot of rethreading. So if at all, the cotton snaps or something goes wrong and it gets caught up and I have to rethread a machine, oh my god, I absolutely hate that. And I'm sure those of you who have things like overlockers will completely agree with me. It's an absolute nightmare sometimes to rethread them. My favourite sewing task. Okay, now my favourite sewing task always is top stitching. So for me, it's the one thing that my friends who don't sew and people who really know nothing about sewing, it's the one thing that they do pick up on, and they notice, if the top stitching is really neat, because it's the one thing that is on display all of the time. So I love taking my time with top stitching and making it look really, really neat, because that's normally at the end of a garment as well, so you're so close to finishing, so then you finish that top stitching and then you actually get to wear it and put it on, so you're so close to the end, and it's such a great feeling. What's your favourite sewing entertainment? When I first started sewing, I was actually sewing in my bedroom at university, so I would sleep and then wake up and just literally get out of bed and start sewing. I was really lucky, I had Virgin Media in my room, so I used to just watch Sky Disney, the movie channel, and I used to watch Disney movies all day long because I love Disney movies, and I find they're really easy and they blend into the background as you're trying to sew. So because I've seen them so many times, I don't actually have to watch what's on the telly to know what's happening. So I like to watch and listen to things I have listened to before, that way I can concentrate on the sewing, and whatever it is just blends into the background. Now since I moved to the workshop, I don't have that luxury, so what I like to do is listen to the radio. I like to listen to Heart FM, the Time Tunnel, Kiss FM, stuff like that, which really has a nice wide variety. So again, I don't just find myself paying too much attention to it and it blends into the background. Printed or PDF, I've only ever worked with one PDF pattern, and it was for a baby grow. And same as what everybody says, it's so annoying having to piece the pattern together. As I said, I quite like drafting patterns and using my own and altering patterns. But I mean, printing patterns don't really bother me. I do quite like using them, but if I can, I will try and draft my own, or I'll use a printed pattern to then create my own and then alter it to fit me and go from there really. Last two now. What sewing machine do you use? Now I use a Janome TXL 607. Yeah, so I use a Janome TXL 607. That's quite a mouthful. I've had it now for about 2 years. Now when I first started learning to sew, I'll put a picture now of what I learned to sew on, and it was something I just found in my parents' house, as I said, and it broke within a day, and it was absolutely atrocious. So I decided to invest in just a really cheap sewing machine, so I didn't really think that I would still continue to sew. And then from there, obviously I got my Janome, and I absolutely love this machine. It is a computerized machine and it does everything that I need it to do. I don't really experiment with decorative stitches and stuff like that, because a lot of my garments are for men and we don't tend to put pretty little flowers, and not all the time anyway, we don't tend to put pretty little flowers on our things. So I haven't probably used it to its full potential, but what I have done with it, I absolutely I love, and I do recommend the machine. Do you have any hobbies? So this is the last question. Do you have any other hobbies? Yes, I'm massive on sport. I've played football my entire life, and I played for Cardiff Men's Football Club. I've played for them for about 5 years, and I always try and fill my time with sort of playing football or hanging around with my friends or going for food with my fiance and stuff like that. So I do quite like to fill my life with loads of different things. It's not just sewing all the time for me. I do love sewing, I absolutely love it, but I do think we need to have sort of a nice divide and a nice balance in our life between, you know, your sewing, your work and your lifestyle of your friends. So yeah, I hope that it does sort of shed a different light on myself and help people that subscribe to me understand a little bit about why I do what I do and the answer to these questions. I'd love it if anyone that follows me got involved. Let me know that you've got involved as well so I can have a look. I think it'd be really great. And I'd just lastly like to thank Holly, who I don't actually know, but I'd like to thank her for introducing this. I think it's a really great opportunity to get to understand people in the sewing community. So thank you so much for taking time to watch this video. Thanks so much for watching, as I said, and I'll see you next time.